people who claim that fish is not really a meat. To me, it's an excuse to eat fish while being able to claim that you never eat meat because you're vegetarian. Well, it's actually called pescatarian because fish is an animal. It belongs to the animal kingdom. But odd feelings about fish seem to come from a long history of misunderstanding about fish. From fish don't have feelings to some thinking that Jesus was vegetarian, even though he fed fish to the multitudes. But really, they have an excuse back then because they thought that fish reproduced asexually. And for some reason that meant that they didn't have any little souls, and they thought that if fish, if fish or any kind of animals reproduce sexually, then if you ate them, you trapped their souls in your bodies. And they thought fish were asexual, so even though Jesus, supposedly fed fish to the multitudes and had some himself, he was still vegetarian. But, that doesn't fly now. We know different. We know that that's a meat. So I don't go with any of those excuses. Now, Catholics ate fish because they were abstaining, and also because Jesus was crucified on a Friday, maybe. So it was a sacrifice to eat fish instead of the traditional meats. It was kind of, I think it's funny to look at this now and think of eating fish on a Friday as being any kind of a sacrifice. But when I was growing up, we had a Catholic family that lived down the street. And we really felt sorry for them, and we thought it was a sacrifice for them to have to eat fish on Fridays. And I'm sure they thought that too, because fish was associated as a poor man's food, and the Catholics knew that. It was a part of the sacrifice to eat something like that. It was almost like it had a shame attached to it, a stigma or something. It's kind of odd. Now, in the 1600s, the Catholic Church was tired of having to have all these strict rules, and so for a while anyway, they included beaver as allowable on Fridays. You see, beaver swam in the water, so they actually decided to call it a fish and wrote it into their rules that it was allowable to eat on Fridays. Now, after a while, they included some ducks, muskrat, and embryos. Oh my, well, they were in the water after all. They were in the water in the womb, and I'm not kidding. That's why they called it a fish. They called embryos a fish. Well, they do look kind of like shrimp. Put another embryo on the Barbie. Oh, can you imagine just stringing them on? I find it odd that the Catholic Church cheated on a sacrificing diet, and the cheating was written right into the rules of the church. I mean, wasn't this supposed to be a requirement of the Catholic Church, a way to be a good Catholic, a way to get into heaven? Can you see them believing in God and then sitting there going, let's call a beaver a fish so we can eat it? Yeah, beaver, fish. Cover your papers, don't let God see. But it shows that there was absolutely no moral concern whatsoever for the animals, because you'd have to, in order to get the embryo out, wouldn't you have to kill the animal? I would think so. And I wondered too, I thought, well, if the animal grew up, the embryo grew up to be an animal that you weren't supposed to eat on a Friday, then could you still eat the embryo? Such tough questions. Anyway, I don't know the answers to these things, but I just find it really, really odd that they were eating all that kind of thing, and beavers and all of that. And so anyway, now you know the history of fish on Fridays. So it's kind of freaky fish facts for Fridays. And anyway, I hope I have grossed you out enough on this subject that you really don't want to eat fish tonight, and maybe no meat whatsoever. How's that?